Hallo und willkommen zu Everyday Eternal Nummer 100. Deine favorite most... my German stops there. I can say, kann ich habe ein Glas Bier bitte? And fick dich. Are we allowed to say that? Is this a PG-13 for Germans?
Dude, I have no idea how any of these things work. I just picked the highest rating we can pick on Audible, and not Audible. Yeah, we're not that big yet on iTunes. Just so we never get in trouble. But I have no idea. But yeah, hello everyone. Welcome to the 100th episode of Everyday Eternal, your favorite, most deceptively named bi-weekly podcast. Today's show is brought to you by all of you who made all of this possible, but especially by our brand new Patreon, P. Bryant. And this is the big announcement, right? Every 100 episodes, we're going to switch to a different language. So going forward, this is going to be a German podcast. Callum, wie gefällt dir das?
Ja.
Just nod and smile and hope it wasn't a question.
Exactly. I've done that a few times. Like, I've been to Germany, honestly 30 or 40 times for mostly music festivals and stuff, and I should know more, and I've been planning to learn more for years because I do use it a lot, but I know the bare minimum to get around. But it very often turns into, once you have 10 pints or so, you're just you just need to know how to ask for a beer, and that's it. And then whenever they say something, you do just nod and say yeah, hope it's not a question. And you often get some stupid looks, like not they're stupid, they think you're an idiot.
Yeah, I remember when I was in the UK, in Bristol, for my student exchange in 8th grade, student exchange parents, they kept asking me whether I want to sleep in my own bed or sleep in the same bed as my student exchange partner, and I only kept saying, "Oh, never mind." And what I actually wanted to say is, "I don't mind." But I didn't really get the difference, and they looked at me like, "Did we just get a defunct guy? He's not really able to talk to us." But yeah, that was the first time I actually came into contact with British culture, on the ground, and it has shaped me forever. I even went to Wales.
It's brilliant, isn't it? Now you know everything. You know about the Wigan kebab. You know about the Milestone Raider.
Yeah, I still want to go to Liverpool, because in Liverpool, they speak in a weird way. I mean, you already have weird dialects, but yeah, Liverpool's the next thing up. But what have you been up to, man? What have you done in preparation of celebration of the 100th episode of your favorite, most deceptive?
I was about to interrupt and say I just joined the chat and started talking. I just started singing, and then he started recording, and I haven't even opened a beer yet. So I haven't prepared. I've been pretty badly prepared. So I'm going to open a beer this second. I'm going to get a Dark Arts Surreal Stout. And cheers.
It's really called Dark Arts?
Yeah, it's called Dark Arts Surreal Stout by Magic Rock Brewing. It's absolutely delicious. And I'm going to toast it to you and the rest of and Matt, who couldn't join us tonight, and the rest of the original members for 100 episodes, which is a massive achievement, really. It's been going... I'll need to depend on you for the real hard-hitting stats and stuff, but it's been going for a very long time. I remember listening
You got the wrong guy, man. You got the guy who can go like this. Whoa!
Nice.
I've never clinked my wine bottle against my wine glass. And
that was pretty good.
Actually,
for first
that
time.
actually caused a giant wave, and I was just lucky it didn't spill on me.
Yeah. Well, I've got our podcast chat open, and 18 minutes ago you say, Matt, actually, I never asked, how did E start? I'm going to spill the beans. So you're right.
I mean, I know quite a bit about the history of the podcast, but the one thing I actually didn't know, but you know what, we're actually going to bring that up next time Matt is on the podcast, is why did it start? I could guess, because there weren't really any legacy podcasts around back then. I hope I'm not misrepresenting things, and people are going to be like, no, I had this podcast that had 2 episodes and a half that we released on my private web space on MySpace, and okay, good. Yeah.
It sounds like a reasonable guess, though.
Yeah, well, that's at least we put it in our logo, right? Established 2013. But yeah, this is how it came about, and we'll talk a little bit about the history. And later on, also, I selected a couple of clips from the history of the podcast where we've been either hilariously wrong, but also a couple of them that I picked because I think they really put things into perspective. If you only came into the format in the last couple of years, there were a couple of clips where, especially Matt was talking about how the metagame should adjust from 2013 to 2014. And I picked those to point out to frame the history of the legacy, of legacy in some kind of context. But yeah, most hilariously, we're going to look at all the cards that we said are totally unplayable and that you should skip over.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. There's some really good stuff in there. There's some stuff which is like we can take a really good lesson from and we can learn it for future card evaluations, but some stuff is just fantastic.
Awesome. So before we jump to that, we ask our Discord, if you want to join the Discord, by the way, patreon.com/everydayeternal, to submit a couple of questions for us to answer on the podcast. And in typical Everyday Eternal fashion, we sent that call for questions out like half an hour before we actually started recording. But we still get a ton of them.
We got loads, and they're really fantastic. I think they've been like brewing these and just waiting for the call, because there's some stuff which I was reading. It was like, God, that's a really good question. I don't really even know, and I want to dwell on it. But yeah, I'm looking forward to answering them.
I'm going to defer it to Julian because he's been on the podcast the longest. Actually, Matt has been on the podcast the longest. And Julian is like, actually, it's us, just ask Matt, who's not here tonight. Perfect. Matt has got so drunk in celebration of the 100th episode, they actually had to airlift him to, I don't know, Vancouver or something.
Yeah, too many needle stabbings in the face.
But before we get into that, Callum, what have you been playing? What have you been up to?
Yeah, last couple of weeks have been pretty chill on the non-Magic side. Just quick update on everything. We are like still looking very good here. I've been meeting up with lots of friends outside now, and in a few weeks we get to start meeting up inside. So I think I have some cube in my sights, and that's another thing. But I've been going back to Esperimentor. I played a little bit of Elves last week, and deck's always good. Got a trophy with it and stuff. And a few 4-1s. But then I just kind of fancy playing at Esperimentor again. I think I played 2 or 3 leagues this week and kind of trying some new things out and testing some different options. And it just, it has one really bad matchup in Moonstompy, but then it's beating almost everything else. So, I don't know. I can't tell how good it is still, but it's performing well. And I've started
I'm beating everything except Moonstompy, but I can't say how good it is.
Well, no, because
I like it, man.
Yeah, it's not meant to be a humble brag, I promise. It's still a small sample size, and I don't know, other people aren't playing the deck, and I take that as a sign that people are trying and not doing very well with it. I do lose to Delver sometimes. I think Rug Delver is actually quite close, but generally it's performing pretty well. So I'm going to keep testing it out. I started writing some sideboard notes. There's a subsection of the Miracles Discord where we have a Esperimentor channel now. So if anyone's interested in the deck and talking about it, I posted a Google Doc of some sideboard guides this morning, and I will continue to add to it.
Wait, you didn't make your own dedicated Discord for that? That reminds me of how the real action. You know how there's the big community and you gotta be in the know about where things go down. And apparently one of those places where things really go down is in the Lands Discord in the Dark Depth subsection, which is the place to be if you want to be in the know. And it took me years to understand that.
So the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 posts in there are. Someone said, dumb thought, has anyone turned one Elvis Spirit Guide Exile into Veil of Summer in response to a black discard spell? And the next posts are yes, 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 yup, nope. And I was the nope.
You guys should have a podcast.
It's brilliant stuff. But no, it's called the Depths Memes and Dreams chat. And it's kind of been dead for a little, or it's been quiet for a little while because Tom Hep's been not playing very much. And he's the backbone of the Memes and Dreams, I'll have to say it. But it's a good place.
Well, he's going to come back once I send him his Everyday Channel shirt.
Yes, I hope so. And he just needs he needs the fire. He needs to be able to. I need to put up a fight against him because he always beats me, and that's the running thing. And if I try and put up a fight, maybe he'll get the energy to come back. But jokes aside, Esperimentor having fun. Put in Jace Prodigy recently to keep trying it out. It's really fun to discard a mentor and then unearth it back on turn 3.
Dude, you keep going the cube route.
The cube route?
You keep going down the things that people do in cube, and then eventually somebody in Legacy is going to come along and, Grizzlebrand you in the first turn, and you're like, but I have this mentor and off one mind and Baleful Strix, and they're like, yeah, I don't care.
In a league last night, I was 4-0 and all 2-0 wins, and then in the last round I played against Reanimator, and they just completely Grizzlebranded me so hard. So exactly what you described.
But seriously, that's actually something I've been thinking about last night, because when I was doing some work, I wanted to have something on the side, and I was actually thinking about whether I should just play Black Red Reanimator, just to, go quickly through a bunch of things and be like, hey, how good is this going to be? I ended up not doing it because I'm in love with Delver now, but I wonder how good Black Red Reanimator is right now.
I think it's okay.
Graveyard Hate.
It's weird
It's just
to say.
okay?
Well, yeah, I don't really have a good reason why it's less than okay, actually. It was very good against this deck because all my good interaction is 2 mana with meddling mages and stuff. But I guess people are probably playing more surgicals than usual because it's decent against Uro, is my guess. So you want people to be playing Rest in Peace as a hate with this kind of deck. So, and they're not really.
Yeah,
that's my guess. I'm not really sure.
I mean, everybody should just play Blue Red Diver anyway, dude.
Yeah, so,
we talked about Blue Red Diver and Maverick on the last episode with Dukes.
So this is what you've been doing, I guess.
I initially committed to Maverick, but as we kept talking about Diver, I was like, okay, I really got to pick up this Blue Red Diver deck, and it's been amazing. I think I trophied the first 2 out of 3 leagues I played. In the other league, I went 4-1.
Nice.
And it's so much fun. I've always loved Derva. People know me for Maverick and Elves, but Derva is basically the second greatest thing for me to do in Legacy, other than playing a mid-range deck with a combo finish. And it's so much fun. I can't get enough of the Sprite Dragon thing. Seriously, that I put it down in our notes. There's no god other than Derva, and Sprite Dragon is its prophet.
Yeah,
and I'm so in love with Sprite Dragon.
It plays into your playstyle because you like having a very aggressive or proactive plan. And to punish stumbling, basically.
Yeah, exactly. I want my opponents to fear me, to be not for personal reasons, but for gameplay reasons. I think when people are put to bad decisions, I just want to create as many possible scenarios where people are like, okay, if I guess right, it's 50-50, and if I guess wrong, it's devastating for me. And I think Delver can create those scenarios, and dude, I just love that. It's basically like a flying haste Tarmogoyf in a way. Strategically, I've had several games actually where I just needed to build a 4-4 or 5-5 Sprite Dragon, and I felt oh wow, now I'm almost like the control deck, and whenever they try to touch it, I just force it. It's so easy, and eventually Spellbelly comes over, Ethereal Forager. I can't keep singing the praises of this deck, and I'm so excited to see how this new card is going to perform. I
was about to ask you, have you played Expressive Iteration? I
have played against it, and I've countered it every time I could, so I guess it's good.
Yeah. I was watching Anurag stream with it last night, and I don't know, I was kind of skeptical, but it clearly has some very high upside. It can be a draw 3 later in the game. I think it's kind of like a draw 2 from about turn 2, probably turn 3 onwards, So that's pretty powerful, and it pitches to Force, which is, I know it's a meme, but it's actually pretty legit. When you have your slow card advantage card is pitchable.
Wait,
if you have multiples.
How do you turn it into draw 3? You get one card, you can play the other card from exile, and how do you get the third card?
2 is the same as 3 in England. We have some weird number things. Don't you have that in Germany where 2 is 3? Well, how about this? If the card you put on the bottom was a land, you don't have to draw that land.
Oh, okay. So you're basically saying Thought Score is a draw 3 as well.
Exactly. Now you get it. Yeah, you're learning the ways of the Delver here. Yeah, clearly.
Yeah, the Callum School of Deck Building. We'll open up courses very soon for sign up. I guess they're gonna sell out.
It's like if one mind is draw 3.
Every single time, basically.
Yeah.
Oh, that's how it works. But yeah, I'm definitely gonna be on Delver for a long time, and actually that segues quite smoothly into Testicular's question, because Testicular is asking, what does it take to dethrone Delver? And I have a lot of thoughts about that, but why don't you go first?
Yeah, I have thought about this as well. I'm actually in a bit of a downswing with the deck. I'm personally just really, really tired of it. I think this is especially true because of COVID, and I've only been playing online. I would usually play every single week at my local game store, and there's a couple of Delver players, of course, but it's generally a lot more casual, and you just do whatever, really. Online, the players gravitate to quote-unquote the best thing, which very often is Delver, or it's one of the best things, and they're just... I've played against it so much now. I haven't even played Legacy as long as you or a lot of other people, but I'm in a bit of a position where I'm just kind of really tired of the play patterns. But I think I'll get out of it. Maybe it's based on the decks I'm playing as well. Maybe I just need to play it myself for a bit. But right now, the power level of the deck is not too good. I'm very confident in that. I think this is the first time in a while it's been like this, probably since GP Niagara. I would guess. But yeah, we don't have like a Dreadhorce Arcanist or Oko or Lurus or whatever, or Ren and 6. We just have like good aggressive decks. We have the Uro and Sylvan Library version, which is like the one true card advantage grindy Delver build, I think. But that's easier to attack. You have ways of dealing with that. It's not as oppressive as the other now banned cards. So yeah, we're looking at like Blue Red Delver. Yep, Expressive Iteration is a pretty good grindy card. The Whale is a good grindy card, but they're easier to answer. Like Pyroblast is now just very good against the deck again, like especially good. So yeah, I'm fine with the deck, but I think to dethrone Delver, it now at this point, there's so many options of threats. Like you're not seeing every deck play Young Pyromancer. You're not seeing every deck play green for Tarmogoyf. Like the options are big now. In the past, Blue Red Delver struggled with options for threats. Like you had people playing Monastery Swiftspear in every single version because it was just one of the better things to do. Now you won't see it at all. So to dethrone Delver, I think you have to like ban Delver, Daze, or like Ponder and or Preordain. It's got to be something like that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the deck is here to stay, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It'll just create moments like me. I'm pretty sure in like 2 weeks I'll be over it. But yeah, how do you feel?
I'm still not sure whether you're trying to say that you're tired of playing against the deck, or whether you think the deck is not as good as it used to be, like the deck archetype.
Both. I'm really tired of playing against the play patterns, but I think the deck is probably the weakest it's been in the last 2 years, which is a nice thing.
Actually, that's a good point, right? Also, when we had stuff like, Ren 6 around, gave it a huge boost, yeah. So what I'm thinking is, when we talk about dethrone Delver, right, it's not what does it take to beat Delver, but we're talking more about like general metagame shifts, which usually means like either coming up with a new deck, new printings or bannings, or I guess technically unbannings, but there's not really anything. And I think there's just like no such thing as dethroning the premier tempo deck of Legacy, because that's, I guess I keep saying that on almost every other episode, but I think that's just like the defining characteristic of any non-rotating format is that there's gonna be some kind of tempo deck, and that deck will always be tier 1. But I don't know whether it's gonna be the best deck, because that's just like whatever, but there's always going to be some kind of tempo deck that's going to define everything else that's going on in the format. Like we've got these resources, card advantage and tempo, and almost like if you look at it as a matrix created by that, Delver is going to limit how deep you can go into neglecting tempo and how deep you can go into, playing for card advantage. Well, what flies, what doesn't fly. And that's why I always say like the printing of Delver has changed the card economics and also tempo economics of Legacy more significantly than any other printing in the format. I guess Days and Wasteland were already a thing when the format was created. So I think there's no such thing as dethroning Delver through decisions that we are to make. And the only thing that, like, if that's what you wanted to do, it's, people have been talking about Days bans, people have been talking about Delver bans. I mean, I even mentioned it in the most recent MTG Goldfish article where I was invited to a roundtable. But I think overall, Delver is like you mentioned, it's in the weakest spot it's been in years, and maybe that's actually why I enjoyed. I don't know.
It could be. I think it's still very powerful. To be clear, like it's clearly tier 1, like one of if not the best deck. But it feels like almost relaxing that it's not so oppressive, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I think it's the question of whether you could or should dethrone Delver. It's probably not something you should really concern yourself with, because the only other times when it was actually even just like called into question whether Delver is tier 1 or the best deck in the first place, were times where stuff significantly broke, like Underworld Breach. I don't know. I think
Breach is the only time in the last 2 years that Delver hasn't been like the best deck.
Yeah, and even looking back further, like I guess Top Miracles had a case to be made. I don't even know which Delver deck was the best.
Like Omnitel, actually maybe not. Grixis Delver probably was better than Omnitel. There was like when Daniel won GP Niagara with Blue White Stonebleed, like weirdly Delver felt kind of tier 2ish then, but that format was not very well defined. It wasn't around for very long.
Is that because Daniel won and Jerry made top 8 at the GP? That's why you're saying the format wasn't very well defined.
What happened around then? It was kind of like, did we just get something banned or something? I can't remember now.
Yeah.
I don't know. There was a big snowstorm and nobody could get to Buffalo, and even fewer people made it to Niagara. No, seriously. I mean, I wouldn't like put too much into a single tournament and try to like reconstruct the metagame from there.
But I remember playing online around that time, and it was like, I can't remember. They just didn't have good cards.
Okay. Yeah, that's what happened. Everybody forgot about Brainstorm. You know how Daenerys forgot about like the Ironborn fleet and stuff. Yeah, that's how it worked. Awesome. So moving on, Achilles has sent us another question, and with that we're going to segue into the entire history of the podcast, at least from what we can reconstruct. Achilles is asking, I would really like to know about the history of Everyday Eternal. When and how it started, how each of you got involved, what you consider to be the best part of the show and experience. And second question, also not exactly related to maybe a different episode, but what podcasts do you all listen to? What resources do you rely on to grow in the game? Okay, so basically what resources are we using? But why don't we start with the second question? I'm actually loading up my podcast thingy here to see which... I mean, I'm listening to a lot of podcasts, not all of them legacy related, but so basically just going through it for me is I listen to a lot of Humans of Magic, but actually, now that I think about it, I'm subscribed to a lot of these podcasts, but I never really listen to every one of the episodes. It's just like a time thing.
When there's
like an episode that really, that's interesting. For example, like the most recent Leaving a Legacy, I listened to. Okay, I'm halfway through Facebook beefs because like I'm really living through the Facebook memes that they post, but I don't listen to every episode of that. Elo Punters I usually listen to when they do release an episode. Eternal Glory, when they have like an interesting topic I like to look into. There's a couple more. I got the Dead Format. I got the Canadian Trash. There's so many, right?
Yeah.
But
I have all of them as well, and I don't get to listen to every single episode. But it's again the same as you. Whenever I have time, I like open it up and go to the last one which like catches my eye. I try and listen to them all. Other resources, like my way I've like consumed MTG content, I guess, has really changed over the years. So at the very beginning, Everyday Eternal was one of the big ones I listened to. The Brainstorm show I listened to a lot and stuff, and I would watch like any legacy stream because they were a lot less frequent back then. Mark Koenig was one of like the first legacy streamers. He was Gay Jesus of Nazareth, I believe, and he was like the only person you could watch. I watched loads of D&T from him back then, but these days I actually watch a lot of non-legacy streamers because my focus at the moment is like trying to bolster parts of the game I'm not that good at. So I think I'm pretty bad at combat still, which is like a classic legacy thing. I play a lot of limited. So
it's a classic former Miracles player thing, okay?
I play everything now. I'll refute that. But I've been really playing loads of limited the last couple of years to like strengthen general game heuristics. And one of the streamers I watch most now is Wyatt Darby. He just explains how to play Magic incredibly well, in my opinion. So I watch streamers that I think are just really good, and formats come second to me currently. That could change again soon, but my interests in Legacy are like I like new, interesting, weird decks and stuff. So I'm always looking for that on Twitter and stuff. But there's not a huge amount of people playing them and stuff. So yeah, I'm bolstering wackiness with type play from better players. Let's put it like that.
Did you watch the Chateau Neuf du Pat on my stream?
Of course. That's
of course.
that's a good deck played by a terrible player. So it's like the opposite of what I like to enjoy, but I gave it a go.
Ooh, shots fired. I think I still went like 3-2 or something, spoiler alert.
It was impressive actually. Like I love the turn 1 Vineyard, turn 2 control magic your monastery mentor.
That's how it was built that way, right? That's what I deduced after playing the deck for like the very first game.
Just good deck
you set the trap, and then the trap hits them. They're like, no, my mentor!
Patrick has also, just to like go off topic for a second, he's also made a deck called Bouncy Castle, where he has like Leyline of Singularity, so everything is legendary, and plays loads of Caracases. And so he's given it to Peter White, who's power 22, and he's like made some changes. So he's playing 4 Agent of Treachery and like lay claims as well, so things that just like take stuff. And he's playing 4 Show and Tells. So you play Show and Tell, your opponent puts in the best thing, and then you put in your Agent of Treachery and steal it, and then you Caracas the agent back again. It's the most trolly deck. But
this is the kind of legacy you want to play, right?
Yeah.
So going back to the first question, when and how did it start? I think we're actually just going to go into a breakdown of the history of Everyday Eternal that I've pieced together here. So the podcast itself, the first episode, it was called Alpha and Introduction, aired on June 12th, 2013. So this year it's going to be the 8th anniversary. And the podcast was created by 3 OG players from the US and one by a good friend, Matt Pavlik from Vancouver. The American players were Sam Craven, Jacob Kory, and Sean O'Brien. And I'm not sure why they created the podcast, but I'm sure Matt will have a lot to say about that on the next thing. And yeah, going back there, like I mentioned earlier, right, there didn't really used to be a lot of podcasts, and especially not a lot of competitive focused podcasts about Legacy specifically. I remember when I was in university, one of the podcasts I listened to was called The Magic Sock. And dude, I have no idea, but I listened to like 100 episodes of that, and it was just like a guy in his basement, and he like pretended to be a sock, I don't know, and he talked like about casual Magic, and it was like endearing, it was like really cool, just like wasn't competitive on Legacy or anything. But I'm just mentioning that to give you an idea how there was really nothing really to listen to, right? And I guess Everyday Eternal back then, when those guys created it kind of tried to fill that void that was the podcasting landscape with regards to Legacy. And yeah, that's almost 8 years later, here we are today.
Yeah, it used to be so different. Like I mentioned before, there was just like no Legacy streams to watch. It was partly because Legacy on Magic Online was like ridiculously expensive as well, I think. But,
yeah, I remember when like Orm's Chant was like $120 a piece, and or same for
Port hit like 200 tickets at one point. Yeah.
Dude, there was a time where for one Reshaden port, you could get 2 playsets of Power 9 on Magic Online. Like, what the fuck? One playset of
yeah. People don't realize how nice it is now compared to the before times.
Especially with rental services now, right?
Yeah.
It's just amazing.
Revolutionary.
Awesome. So yeah, then the podcast went on. I went back to a couple of the early episodes, and holy shit, production quality, right? But I guess that was the best standard that we had back then, and that's what people do. So over the years, it changed. And then in 2014, 2 people were added as co-hosts, Bob Huang and one Julian Knapp. I don't know about this guy, but he was added after his victory at Bazaar of Mox in 2013. And I remember I kind of used to be like a guest in almost every other episode, and eventually, like when the other guys didn't have as much time to come on the show, I was like there all the time. So eventually I just I'm like that friend you have who comes crushing on your couch, and he just like never leaves, and they're like, yeah, I guess he lives here now.
Fine, you live here now. God damn it. Okay.
And then apparently we also added Bob. I was around back then, but I still have no idea why we added Bob. But I mean, Bob is Bob Huang. He's a host of Elo Panthers now, and yeah, he was just like around. Honestly, though, Bob was incredibly competitive back then and for many years to come afterwards. So I'm not surprised he did that, and he's like an awesome guy. So that was 2014. Julian and Bob joined the podcast. Then 2016, the podcast went off on kind of like a hiatus after episode 44. Most of the original hosts, except for Matt, didn't really play as much Magic anymore, and I think the podcast also became a little less competitively focused, and we talked a lot about how like Brainstorm is the shit and needs to go and everything, and you can only do that for so long until it gets old. So yeah, the podcast after 44 episodes went on a hiatus. 1.5 years later, so I don't know if that counts as a continuous podcast. I just like picked it up from Sam, and I was like, you know what, we gotta.
The numbers are in a row. It counts.
Yeah, it's the next year, right? So 2017, I was like, you know what, we gotta revive this. Actually, I rephrased it. I want to say we resumed this. We didn't revive it; it never died. I guess that's for marketing purposes. We're gonna phrase it like that. So yeah, I take over production 2017. At that point, it's Matt, Bob, and me.
This is where everything goes wrong. It just gets worse in 2020.
Yeah, it gets even worse, right? Yeah. But yeah, this is what it says in the show notes. 2019, we actually added Eric Landon as a co-host, as Matt didn't really have a lot of time to come on the show all the time anymore. I had previously met Eric a couple months earlier in Beijing for the Beijing Orlov Legacy Tournament. We hung out there, and yeah, just like made sense, right? Eric has a lot of really precise opinions about Legacy, and we need people like that. It's actually funny when I look back at the previous review episodes. I think Eric has the most outspoken opinions about a lot of cards, and that's actually something that made me think maybe I should do that as well, to be more outspoken about what I think about cards. Because, you when you review a card, you always have that urge to be like, oh, maybe I'm wrong, or maybe this, or maybe that. And Eric's like, no, this is crap. Like, get it out of here.
This Dreadhorce Arcanist card just dice to bolt.
How bad is it, right? If your opponent attacks with a Dreadhorce Arcanist, that's gonna be bad. So yeah, towards the end of 2019, we actually decided to sell Bob Huang on the transfer market. We put him out, and Elo Hunter sent an offer, and we were like, you know what, Bob, gotta be gone. You got a podcast with your best friends from the US, and yeah, this is actually how we funded the podcast for the entire year of 2020.
He was just sold for fees at the first year, and now he's probably gone.
Actually, for a couple bottle of wines.
Yeah, good deal.
No, actually, we collect royalties on every episode of Elo Hunters where Bob says something smart. You're laughing now, but actually that's how it works. But nobody would ever believe it.
Well, because you made no money because he never says anything smart.
That's the thing. That's Hollywood accounting. Lord of the Rings, never heard about it. We lost a lot of money on it. Then 2020, Eric goes on a hiatus, not only from Everyday Eternal, but also from streaming and Magic in general. And yeah, this is where one Callum Smith actually ends up joining the podcast. He had been on the show previously, I think, episode 50-something, where
I think I talked about... I had the sofa situation that you did as well. I feel like I was on like every other episode for 3-ish, and then you were like, come on.
Pretty much, right? I think we had you on, like, the very first time was about Phoenix, and then every other episode we had you around. We're like, you know what? Let's just make this official.
Yeah.
So yeah, ever since it's been you, Matt, and me, 2020 going strong. We just hit the 100th episode, by the way. If that comes as a surprise to you, open a bottle of wine. Yeah. Oh my god, I already had like way too much.
And now we've dedicated the next 100 episodes. According to our Discord, I was called out on this. The next 100 episodes are going to be dedicated to all my punts, which I think is not enough time to cover them, but they seem to believe it. So.
And also, I guess are we really going to speak German? We will figure it out, dude.
I thought you were going to like auto translate this after we finished recording.
Dude, I have been on German podcasts twice, and every time I started speaking in English, when I was asking, I was like, oh no, wait, slow down, let's do it differently. So yeah, this is the history of Everyday Eternal up to 2021. We have no idea how deep we'll go, whether we'll hit the 1,000. I have no idea how that's going to work. Maybe, if we ever hit 1,000. Is there actually any legacy podcast or magic podcast that has hit 1,000?
I think the most is Levy Legacy with like 400 and something.
Dude, Cherry and Patrick,
they knock it out every other week. Yeah.
Isn't it every week, actually?
Is it every week? It could be. I'm going to look it up.
I'm pretty sure it's every week. They have like almost like 400 episodes or something.
Yeah, it must be every other week. I mean, every week, sorry. I don't know what numbers are. I told you we have weird ones in England.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, about that.
Facebook Beefs is the last episode, and 335. That's still a hell of a lot.
Yeah, maybe we do like 3 episodes a week, and every one of them is like 20 minutes or something. Yeah, okay. But let's see how that's gonna work. But I'm excited. I'm really excited to see where this is gonna go going forward. And going back to Achilles' question, because that's actually really interesting to me. It made me think a lot about why I like the podcast so much. Achilles is asking about the best part of the show, and there's many things, and one episode especially that I really enjoyed. But before we get into that, to me, Everyday Eternal has always been about 2 things, and I think we kind of succeed. Actually, no, I wanted to make stronger statements, right? We do succeed at doing that. Oh my god, that feels so full of myself.
It's better you do than me. I'm very careful with what I say like that. Like I'm always like, maybe this is okay. You do it.
Maybe I'm just gonna be the bold one, and you can do the rest. To me, Everyday Eternal has always been about 2 things. One thing is we want to be about the competitive stuff. We really want to talk about what it is like, what's happening in the format, and not try to like sugarcoat things and be like, oh, you know what, Nick Fit, it's gonna be okay. Sorry, Thomas, by the way, if you're listening to this.
Wait, what?
But
no, I'm not. I didn't sign up for this. I am not going to have Nick Fit slandered on this podcast.
No, okay.
Death and
We'll find something else.
On the other hand. sorry, carry on.
It's the Death and Taxes theme podcast. No, but seriously, this is the one big thing, and I especially noticed it towards the end of the initial period up until episode 44, where I think we started becoming a lot more casual and less competitive focused, which was just like a natural thing because most of the hosts didn't really play anymore. And that's what I always want to maintain, because that's what the podcast is here for. I think if you want to have like more like casual stuff, there's a lot of podcasts out there, but I still want to be the guy who knows what he's talking about, or at least knows enough that he can make a statement and think that that's actually true, and not be like in a position where I'm like, oh, I think this is how it works and that's how it works. Like I want to be in a position where if I say something about the format, I can either say this is the way it is, or I can I can say I don't know, and not feel bad about myself because I'm not saying that all the time. And this is maybe one of the two core aspects of Everyday Eternal that I really want to maintain in the show. The second one is just being the casual hangout and shit-talking Callum. That's just really where I want to be. I want to shit-talk about that weird island that Matt bought a house on. Actually, it's not even a house, and I think he didn't even buy it. But you get the idea, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't want to be like too concerned about what I say or whether I'm wrong. Just have that casualness to the competitiveness that's really, really hard to do. So
what I've always enjoyed in Legacy is letting the cards speak for you. And then you can be like, you can be casual and joke around and stuff. But then to prove that you know what you're talking about as well, you can do well at this game that we're preaching and talking about, and to prove that we do win as well, which I think we both do. We play a lot of Magic Online and win enough, so we can back up these claims, but also just chat shit about each other at every opportunity.
That's pretty much it, right? So in essence, I want to be competitive, but in form, I want to be casual. And that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, so you try and be competitive. Like, you're given these broken decks like Chateauneuf du Pape, and you kind of screw it up. You 3-1, which is, a bit disappointing, to be honest. Expected more on this podcast. When I signed up, I thought I was signing up with a good player. But, you have time to grow. This is just episode 100, and there's going to be 900 more at least. So I hope by the end of it we can 6-0 with Chateauneuf du Pape.
Awesome. So one specific episode I actually want to mention that to me has been one of the most important episodes in the development of this podcast. Okay, those are big words, right? That's episode number 37. It used to be called The Miracle Man. I think we later renamed it to Talking Miracles. And that, at the time, and probably maybe even in the entire history of the podcast, has been the most competitive focused episode ever. We talked 2 hours about miracles. I think a lot of people are already falling asleep. I was on the show. We had Philipp Schöniger on the show. We had Tomasz Flaczek on the show. I think Matt was on the show. And Sam Craven might have been on the show. And that was one of those episodes where I really realized, dude, this is such an amazing episode where we really break down not only the deck, the primer, but also like the matchups, everything. And was so it was overflowing with competitiveness while still having a bunch of people just hanging out. And this is where I really first realized, dude, this is what I want the podcast to be about. And if you can handle the bad production, like I don't even want to say bad production quality, but like the production quality of those times, then definitely go back. And also I really want to say thank you to Min, because Min actually preserved that episode. We have a little bit of a gap. I think there's like 6 episodes missing that are lost to time, but Min happened to have that episode on his computer and he sent it to me, and that's why you can still listen to episode
of course
37.
He did. I love it. I even remember when that episode came out. I was about to go on a holiday skiing with my family for a week. I downloaded like 5 episodes around then to listen to in the evenings, and then I think I just listened to that episode like 3 times in a row at the beginning, and it sorted me most of the time. It was pretty good.
This was one of the episodes where we got so much feedback on that I only then really realized, dude, people are actually listening to this podcast. Like, what the fuck is going on? We're not just like talking
to the
ourselves.
void.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
funny because we got amazing feedback for the one with Mark Eric Vogt as well. So it's something about miracles.
Yeah, unfortunately, not unfortunately because of Mark, but because of miracles.
Hey man, I'm a big Miracles fan, so I'll support it here.
Dude, I started loving Miracles once Top was banned. Like I kind of enjoy the kind of gameplay, but in a different way. Like it's not what I want to be doing in a big tournament. I do enjoy it as like a thing to mix it up.
Mm-hmm. It is nice, yeah.
Your dog agrees as well. Awesome.
Yes, I was about to say something. She got distracted, and yeah.
So before we move into our highlight clips, there's one more question coming to us from Selkie. Is there any kind of content you wish existed but currently does not?
This is the question that floored me. I don't know. Like, I feel like there should be. It's the kind of question where it feels like there should be an answer. No, I don't have a good answer. There probably is an answer, but I can't think of something.
So to me, before we go into like specific content, I think what I'd love to see more is anything comedy related to, like, it's so hard to even talk about that with regards to Legacy because like the format is not as big as, you know, Limited or Standard or whatever. Like there's really good comedy channels about Magic in general out there. I think didn't you recently share like this video about this guy who was like totally high on drugs playing like a deck that had long been banned, and he was playing against like TES or something. Like, what the fuck was that? Maybe we can link it in the show notes.
A Doomsday thing. I think it was from like 2 or 3 years ago because he was playing Doomsday, but it was called Boom Pile because it Doomsdayed into 3 wishes for like Auroch Salvage plus LED plus Conjurer's Bauble, and then you 3-wished after that, and then you get the tendrils. I can't even remember what 3 wishes does. Like
it was like totally fucked up, and the idea was it was not intended to be a strategy video. Like altogether, it was like 2 minutes long or something. But it was just like pure comedy. It's like the polar opposite of it, yeah. But it was hilarious, and I just wish we had more of that. And that's something, I guess, that also goes together with the community being more relaxed about that, because while Legacy in general is a little bit more relaxed than most things going on in Magic, I feel, I think there's like still a little bit of tension about like respect me and respect my content. And I think we've gotten a lot better about that, but I think we need to relax even more about that. Like, if people like shit talk everyday channel, if there's like something at the core, like the essence, then that's something to take away. And if they only do it to hurt me or you, then that's just like fucked up. But if they do it because it's funny, then like all the more power to you. And I think that's how people should generally feel about their content. And
I kind of agree. Like, being English, we have massively self-depreciating kind of humor. And anytime anyone tries to make fun of me, I will just make fun of myself even more than they do, and then they just feel stupid. So it's a pretty hard one to do. So I welcome it. Bring it on.
Yeah, sure. Okay, people are going to shit talk us so much for the next episode. But yeah. So the only other thing I want to have is basically like what we then created in the Legacy Premier League, even though, dude, I wish I could do another season. I just don't know if I have the time and power and everything in me. It's just so much work, and I keep saying that every time. Like, people, if you think you know how much work it is, think about it like 5 times, and then you come even close to it. But that's something I always wanted in Magic, because I take an insane amount of inspiration from both StarCraft and Street Fighter. And in StarCraft, they kind of have that with the BSL, Bombastic Star League, or even like in Korea with the ASL. And I always wanted to have something like that, and that's what we created with the LPL. The other thing that's really, really cool, and that's coming from Street Fighter, and that we don't have that in Magic yet. And it's kind of hard to implement in Magic, because like Magic is less super hype driven and more like, very deliberate, slow, quiet. But in Street Fighter, they have fight nights. And for example, Alex Bayer, which, you know if you know Alex Bayer, he's probably one of the biggest ambassadors of the game in history, and he just had his first child, I think, by the way, congratulations. And he organizes stuff like that where people just get together, and it's happening online. You can also have it offline, and they just like play for like one night, I don't know, a couple of hours, and winner stays on, they call it. So you just like, you keep getting challenged by the crowd, and all of that is streamed and commentated. And I think that would be such an awesome hangout situation. You know, imagine like, I don't know, Anorak starts out, you challenge him, then somebody wins, loses, then the next guy comes on, and we have like a bunch of people, and it's just like a hangout with people maybe having drinks and stuff and having a good time. And I mean, it's a very easily described concept, but there's a lot of things that actually need to be prepared and worked on in order to really create that kind of awesome chill out atmosphere, and not like a random stream. And this is just like something that's been on the back of my head that I just started thinking about once Selkie asked us that question.
That's really fun. It sounds hard to replicate, because as you said, like the hype is, like there's a lot of very deliberate Magic players, like you say, and it is kind of part of the game as well. Like it's a thinking game, isn't it? So it's going to be part of it whether you like it or not. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think
you could
the only
definitely
way
get some hype things.
like I would want to do it like, I don't know, time limit 10, and then you gotta play. But that's probably not happening. Wizards would love that. Wizards would be like, oh, no sideboarded games, best of one. Yeah, Julian, hey, here's all our money. It's like,
Oh, dude,
okay.
there's a new Hearthstone card, which is, if it's in both your decks, you have like 5-second turns or something.
Wait, what?
Yeah, and in the last like high level event, I believe, if the match went to like drawn games, the last deck that they get to play has to have that card in it. So sudden death is like with 5-second turns.
Okay,
It's mental.
that's actually smart.
It's really cool.
That's actually
It's
smart.
Everyone was saying like while I was watching it, everyone in chat and all the players, they absolutely hate it, but it's really fun to watch. So yeah. Maybe
I guess in order to make that work, you need to make sure that your interface and also like your gameplay dynamics are compatible with that. Like in Legacy, it probably wouldn't really work because you have so many things going on. But I like the idea of anything that brings more hype to a game without compromising the actual gameplay, which this, I guess, kind of does. But
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I enjoyed watching them suffer, so yeah.
Awesome. So now we're moving on. We're actually going to play a couple of highlight clips. So the first clip we're bringing you, it comes from episode 4, July 2013. It has Matt, and Matt speaks a little bit about Chalice of the Void and Dark Depth. And the number one reason the reason I included this is because in the past I've spoken a lot about how Chalice was really only like becoming a card once Top Miracles became a thing. Because previously it was really this allegedly tier 2, actually tier 3 cards that people played like in Dragon Stompy, Fairy Stompy, what have you, even Demon Stompy. And this was around the time once Miracles actually like really started hitting us hard that people realized, hey, we could actually play Chalice. And just to give you a little bit of a flashback from that era, this is how people spoke about Chalice back then.
Not only is Null Rod really good right now, or could be really good right now, Chalice and Trinisphere are criminally underplayed right now. Chalice is backbreaking Brainstorm, Ponder, Swords to Plowshares.
All of Rug. The entire Rug deck is hit by that one
The
card.
format really doesn't like Chalice of the Void. I think Karakas, even though Karakas doesn't kill Karakas anymore, I think if people are going to be starting to play this Thespian Depths garbage combo, that I actually don't think is going to be that good.
So yeah, this is two things in one. Matt also talks about the Dark Depth Thespian stage combo, which kind of like became a thing, but not really until 2016, I want to say, where it did win or at least go all the way to the finals of Bazaar of Eternal Weekend in Paris that year. But this is how people thought about the combo back then.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was always a kind of fringe, kind of cute deck, wasn't it? I don't really know what. I think the only thing that kind of made it good was people playing it more and realizing how good it was, because the cards were always there, weren't they? There's nothing stopped it. It was played in lands. Was it adopted in lands straight away? Thespian stage? Do you remember?
Not exactly straight away, but pretty quickly. But lands didn't really lands was like really big and like before, like around 2010 until like 2012.
Yeah.
But then
it was like
kind
the
of went
intuition
away.
kind of Zuranorb engineered explosive style.
Yeah,
Academy
exactly.
runes.
And sometimes you would just like win with Academy runes if you were like super crazy.
Beautiful.
But this is like the very first time people were like, Dark Depth.
Well,
I think
because Dark Depths was played before in like Living Wish junk kind of style rock decks with a Vampire Hex Mage as well. Like it wasn't a new combo, but Thespian stage doubled up. So
yeah. And like the very reason I actually played this clip is this is really like the point in time where Chalice started becoming the thing that people then bitched about for many, many years. And it's just like a cool thing to point out how Chalice was, I guess at that point we already called it underplayed. It wasn't like a sleeper card anymore. But I just want to go back and once again point out that Chalice really wasn't a thing before Top Miracles. Like people played it, but it wasn't not something that you actually had on your mind when you built your deck. It wasn't like you played Threshold and you were like, oh, I need something to deal with Chalice because like only that weirdo in the first round is maybe gonna have Chalice and then that's gonna be it.
Funny you say that, because I was just waiting to come in with I quit Magic until about 2011 and got back in around Innistrad, and my first deck back was Spanish Inquisition, and I then very quickly built Werewolf Stompy, and I can absolutely tell you that Chalice was not a good card and it was not respected. or at least where I played, and people were like, okay, Chalice, whatever, is a knight or a terravore or something. It was completely different then. It was just kind of like a cute thing that you might get someone with sometimes, but mostly people just played 2 and 3 drops and ignored you and laughed at you. But it seemed like a great call from Matt at the time, actually.
Yeah, definitely. Looking at all the past episodes, it's kind of funny because Matt, he doesn't have a lot of time to play anymore. So back then, he was like the guy who was really talking about the competitive shit. Like, I think of all the original hosts, Matt was by far the most competitive. I guess Koby is up there. And when I listen to his calls, like, they are super spot on, especially back then. And yeah, that's... By the way, Matt, if you're listening to this, shout out. Looking forward to having you on the next episode. Mm-hmm. We even had like a clip where he first discovered Siege Rhino. I didn't include it because there's not really much to learn about it.
Oh, we can save it for next time.
Okay, we'll play it to him then. That's great. Going forward, here's the very next episode from the same month, July 2013. And this is how Young Pyromancer, one of the most defining cards of one of the most dominant decks, Grixis ever in Legacy history, was initially received back then.
Young Pyromancer has gotten a lot of talk. A lot of people think it's really bad. I'm reserving judgment. I don't know if it'll do anything, but it has potential to be a cheaper Talrand, which has seen some play in Vintage as a way of, at least this is how I've used it, is if your combo doesn't go off, well, you have a whole bunch of Drake tokens in play, and that's pretty good anyway. Again, I don't know how good it's going to be, but I think it'll be interesting to watch.
So yeah, Young Pyromancer, it's the Tyrant of Legacy, right? This is how the card was first perceived. It's bad, it's not going to do anything, maybe it's going to be a backup plan for your combo deck. Nobody thought about running this one out and just getting like a bunch of 1/1s. Like, why would you want that? Why would that be good? They just all die to Devastating Dreams, right?
Good point. Devastating Dreams, and I guess people played Toxic Deluge back then a lot in Shardless and stuff. Was that then? No. But yeah,
that was around the era.
Yeah, I don't remember Young Pyromancer like doing much until Grixis Delver really picked up in popularity, though.
It's funny you mentioned Grixis Delver, because that's the not exactly next episode. It's from January 2014, where I called it Matt and Sam accidentally built Grixis Delver. Grixis Delver, like, it was kind of like starting to become a thing, even though in January 2014, like, everybody was playing. Was it already Treasure Cruise? No, Treasure Cruise came out later. But it wasn't really a thing. But yeah, just listen how Matt and Sam actually discover one of the greatest interactions in the history of Legacy.
Al, one of the other things that's interesting, there have been some interesting decks based around it, because obviously you're going to have a lot of tokens with this guy in Legacy, because you're playing things like Brainstorm and Daze and Force of Will, which are, low cost or 0 cost and get you a guy. That results in two things that are really interesting. One is you play a lot more cards where maybe you don't play them at a great time because you get the extra value of having a guy. So, for example, they might bolt your Pyromancer. They have open mana. You daze it. So, yeah, they pay it. Your Pyromancer dies, but you still have a guy, and now they're tapped down. And I found when I was playing this, you see a lot of plays like that where you say, this isn't the best thing I could do right now, but now that Young Pyromancer's on the battlefield, it makes it a much better thing to be doing. So it adds value to all of your spells.
Pretty good with the Gitaxian Probe as well.
Yes, and there's been a Grixis Delver list that ran both Gitaxian Probe and Cabal Therapy. So you Gitaxian Probe them for 2 life, see their hand, sacrifice a dude, and Cabal Therapy them for free with perfect information of their hand.
I like the sounds of that.
It's pretty good.
I like
that
the
one.
sound of that.
Yeah.
You think it has legs?
We'll give it a go and see. Yeah, wow.
I like how Sam introduces it as there has been a Grixis Delver list. Like, somebody somewhere put this together, and Matt is like, oh, dude, this is actually like Gitaxian Probe. We should do that. That sounds pretty good. So I'm like, yeah, let's see.
Well, I'm trying to remember the time frame now, because I do remember, I'm forgetting his surname, a player from the SCG circuit, Eric something, and he very often played Delver, and he made a Grixis Delver list with Idrik, Spymaster Trest, as well as Young Pyromancer, and it was basically, it had Probe and Cabal Therapy and like Deathrite and Young Pyromancer and Stifles and everything. Maybe that's what they were referring to. It feels like it was around the same time.
Is it Eric English?
No.
That name kind of rings a bell, but I could be totally wrong. It's probably like something completely different.
Yeah. But it was, yeah, I don't remember if it was like before or after they're mentioning that, but yeah, I guess Grixis Delver, it wasn't like a kind of a breakout thing, was it? It was just like it slowly appeared more and more and more until like after a year or something, people finally accepted that, all right, this thing is absolutely busted.
Yeah, at that point, chemotherapy and Gitaxian Probe had been around for a while. And I even remember, like, those two cards have been a thing for a very long time. But it took forever for people to even adopt those into Storm. I remember at GP Amsterdam, like October 2011, Eli Pichorn, sorry for the mispronunciation, played that in... Okay. Oh, okay, let's do it like that. Played that in Arndt. And people were like, whoa, you're not playing like Thoughtseize Duress? It's like, no, we're playing this. And it took forever for Storm to adopt one of the best protection spells they ever had. And yeah, it's kind of similar for Delver.
Yeah.
Funny, by the way, I like how Sam is like, you know what, we can actually get value out of dazing a Lightning Bolt on our young Pyromancer, even if they pay for it. Because technically at that point you're bouncing your own land to make a 1/1. It's like, what the fuck?
I think this point is absolutely brilliant, actually, and it's a really, really good thing to learn from these kind of reviewing cards and taking it forward, because this is not a good use of a Daze. It's not a good use of a young Pyromancer, but you're realizing that when something is going wrong for this card you're playing, you can still extract value from another bad situation. And that's a really valuable thing. If you can get value from a situation where this Daze is probably dead because they have mana open, and the young Pyromancer is dying, it's not getting any value. But combine these cards together, you're able to extract some value from them basically being dead. So, and he mentioned tapping them down is pretty real. That's like a plus side to Daze, I guess. So, yeah, I think this is like a kind of evaluating a flaw of a card often. And it's really useful to try and work out or maybe it's not the flaw, it's like an average case. It's when things are not going very well, it's like a below average case, I guess. You're still able to do things with the cards you're given, and in close games, that is what win or lose games for you. So it's pretty important to look at these kind of points.
Yeah, and it was also kind of cool that you don't have to have that great one thing that you do with the card. Like we had that in Gitaxian Probe plus Cable Therapy, which was one of the best combos that in combination with Young Pyromancer that we ever had in the format. But even just by playing your normal Delver game, that is, Delver, Brainstorm, Ponder, Daze, whatever, you get to extract a certain amount of value out of it, like you mentioned, and that's gonna be worth something. I remember for one of the GPs, one of the commentators from Wizards actually asked me to write some kind of review about what's going on in the format. And once Young Pyromancer had been established, I think I called it like the cash-in phase, where once you get a certain number of tokens, you just keep turning them sideways, no matter how many die each turn, because you're gonna extract a certain amount of damage out of them. Say you have 6 and they got 2 blockers to kill them, then you deal like 4 damage and 2 damage, that's like 6 damage, and maybe that's gonna be worth it. And one of the skills with Young Pyromancer and Grixis Delver back then was kind of identifying once you actually had to go for the cash-in phase. And that's something that you really only fully realize once you start playing with the deck. Because I think when we are reviewing cards, very often people are like, they're looking for the Cable Therapy, Gitaxian Probe interaction, whereas what makes the deck really work, or the card really work, is the, in this case, cash-in situation, the just like random incremental value that you get over time. And that's really hard to judge. And I think that shows in a lot of card evaluations, both in our podcast and like on other media. And yeah, that's something to be mindful of, not to underestimate incidental random value that you get over time from a card that's still a pretty decent deal at 2 mana for a 2/1.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's kind of fair enough as well for all the people that have reviewed or will be reviewing new cards and stuff. You are generally looking at like 3 points. You're looking for the ceiling, you're looking for the floor, and you're looking for the average case. And within those parameters is this case, like this is between the floor and the average case, where you're getting a 1/1 for like a little bit of value and stuff. But those things, especially in fair decks, I found those things add up. So, but this is the kind of thing you're not going to think about when you're evaluating a new card to go in a competitive deck. It's not where things start, but as these things add up and these more and more cases, so as you said, cashing in damage or the little bit of value here and there, like when you build up enough situation like this, then that's where like it actually raises the power of the card enough.
Yeah. And speaking of card evaluations, a card that took forever to be fully appreciated in Legacy is Ponder. And it probably blows your mind if you only started playing the last couple of years, but one of the biggest schisms discussions in the history of Legacy was whether Ponder is good, which is like, what the fuck, right? I just played Blue Red Delver again, and I could never imagine playing the deck without Ponder. But that was the big thing. And the two decks opposed to each other were, on one side, Philipp Schöniger's, we literally called it the Ponder Miracles.
I was about to say, I reread the Source Miracles thread a few weeks ago because I got linked to a really old post there, and I was going through it, and there was people saying, well, there's Ponder Miracles and then there's Venser Miracles, and it's really funny to go back to.
Yeah, Venser Miracles or Legend Miracles, played by Joe Lussert, right? Mm-hmm. Those were the two big things, and Joe was really successful. Philipp was really successful. Philipp top 8 at 2 Legacy GPs in a row in Paris 2014 and New Jersey 2014. And yeah, I think it's rather clear to see that Ponder is like a mainstay of the format now. But I found one clip especially where people were evaluating the card Spirit of the Labyrinth. And the reason I'm including this is one of Matt's comments that blue decks aren't actually playing that much card advantage, or even like draw spells in the first place. Blue decks were like a lot more mid-range. Like what blue decks did was they got down like Noble Hierarch, and they did have Brainstorm, yes, but then that was pretty much it when it comes to card advantage. And I guess you could like click yourself and like get a second draw that way, which like was something Spirit would prevent. And in Miracles was really like one of the very first decks that was like, you know what, we're gonna do like this whole Brainstorm thing. We're gonna do that whole chase thing and have card advantage and all that kind of stuff. Whereas previously, like the best thing we really had was Landstill, and Landstill was like not. Like, Landstill was the noob crusher. I remember, like, in my local meta game, Landstill always crushed, like, everything. But Landstill barely ever, like, managed to shine on the big stage. And, yeah, I want to go to episode number 16, February 2014, and listen to Matt's comment about Spirit of the Labyrinth. Which, by the way, if you don't know that, that's a 3/1 creature for 2, and every player can only play one card, draw one card each turn.
Sam, take it away.
Spirit of the Labyrinth is 1 and a white. It's a 3/1, so already you're doing pretty well relative to power toughness on that cost.
My opinion is this. Okay, so it is a 3/1 that's tutorable with a Lightning Tutor that prevents cantripping. Seems good unto itself. The problem is, they're probably going to get a Brainstorm before you put it down, possibly, or a Brainstorm in response. But all these blue decks are interested in drawing extra cards, don't get me wrong. But I mean, beyond 4 Brainstorm and 2 Ponders that most decks are playing, or even just say 4 Brainstorm, does anyone really care?
Well, I think this is a card that you really can't look at in a vacuum. I think that it's something where if you pair this with, say, Aven Mind Sensor, where now their deck is essentially the way it is on the table now is the way it's going to be for the rest of the game, and they're not going to be able to go through things. That's where I think this card in Legacy is going to really shine.
So yeah, Aven Mind Sensor, that's the first card that comes to your mind when you think of Spirit of the Labyrinth. People give me shit for like still wanting to make that card happen in Legacy, and especially with Doomsday around. I think it's more justified than ever again. But yeah, the most important takeaway here is Matt even talking about, it's not even clear whether decks would play Ponder in the first place. They have like their 4 Brainstorms, and then that's pretty much it, and they might even get one of them in before. And that really is like still in German we call it Zeitgeist, like the way people were thinking at the time. And
Shardless used to play 1 Ponder as a flex slot. It was pretty common. It's just so funny to think of now.
Yeah, and even then it was like weird. Like if you cascade into Ponder, I was like, well, you already didn't want to cascade into Brainstorm. Like if you cascade into Tarmogoyf, that was great. Even Death Gem was decent. But if you cantrip Shardless into like a cantrip, it's like meh, yeah, whatever.
Yeah. But I guess.
But yeah, this is
the decks back then, like trying to make a little bit of a case for the lack of Ponders. Maybe devil's advocate here. Like decks really needed more raw things to be doing. Like this is one of your critiques of lots of control now as well. It's just all air and it's not enough things. But decks were just like butting heads a lot more, to put it in one way of putting it. Like they would play a threat, another deck would play an answer, then they would play a threat, the other deck plays an answer. It'd be a lot more like jostling for position back and forth, and tempo just wasn't as much of a thing as it is now, the threats weren't as good. And so because the threats weren't as good, you are having this kind of resource battle. And when you're having a resource battle, actually, I'm just kind of like talking myself into thinking Ponder is even better if there's no tempo. So, I don't know. I'm kind of like, arguing with myself now already.
The thing about Ponder, like you mentioned how the threats renders got. It's no surprise that this area, I think, was the best Tarmogoyf has ever been in Legacy. And I remember back then, people were even talking about, like, one of the reasons why you might want to play Ponder is because it's a sorcery, so you can grow your Tarmogoyf out of Lightning Bolt range. Like, people were thinking about that. People were also thinking about the selection you get from Ponder, but apparently that wasn't enough to make it an auto-include as a 4-off. People were like, oh, and it grows your Tarmogoyf. And like, oh, okay, now I'm going to consider it. This is something else, man.
Yeah, I guess as the power level of cards or the efficiency of cards grows, you can afford to play it more as well, is a way of putting it.
Yeah.
Like, you have better things to find.
But I'm already halfway through my second glass of wine, and I really want to get to my favorite clip now.
Go on.
The upcoming clip is our initial review of Treasure Cruise, one of the most broken cards in the history of the format. If you don't remember, it was like Delve Infinite, I think Delve 7, and a blue, and it's a sorcery, draws 3 cards. And yeah, it was spoiled, and this is how your allegedly competitive podcast thought about Treasure Cruise in September 2014.
On the subject of Delve, Treasure Cruise, 7 and blue, Delve. Alright, obviously way too high casting cost for Legacy. And it draws 3. My first thought on this, before I realized it was 7 and a blue, I thought it was like 3 or 4 and a blue. At like 4 and a blue, a Time Spiral deck can get rid of all the fetch lands that they don't want to draw back. But at 7 and a blue, you probably have to get rid of too much good stuff. Another place this has got potential is in a dredge deck, where you can get all the crappy cards out of your graveyard and trigger 3 more dredges.
That I can see. Julian, what do you think?
I think all of the dev stuff that has been spoiled thus far is just not quite cutting it. Even like the draw 3 sorcery, that's a card that you would want in the very first turns. Like you want all of the cantrips and dredge, for example, like Breakthrough and Careful Study and Faithless Looting. And later on, you're not going to draw it anymore because you're just going to be dredging anyways. So it's if you somehow were to I don't know, change around the slots and end up in a situation where you actually want to include more of these draw spells, yeah, then I can see it. But right now I think it's worse than the stuff that already exists. I don't see it being played in dredge. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it's some people maybe randomly sideboarded it in control decks for the control mirror, but even there I think there might be better options, especially since it's sorcery.
So what happens if this card was made as an instant? Does it become playable at 7U?
Yeah. What happens if you play Treasure Cruise as an instant? And do you want to play it in fucking dredge?
There's so many good bits. Like, you could sideboard it in control for the mirrors. And you made a very good point. You do want to draw 3 cards early in the game. You just make one very good point. Oh my god!
That was in regards to dredge, right? I have no idea. Like Sam gave us the initial 2 ideas. The initial idea was like, oh, we could play it in like High Tide, which is like a very good idea. And then it's like, oh, but we have to delve 7 cards, and we might want to redraw them once we time spur. So better not draw 3 cards. Nobody like challenged him on that because we were like, imagine, oh yeah, good point, Sam.
Can you imagine if it costs like 3 or 4 and a blue? God.
You can even like cast it on the second turn. I don't know. Like I would like Fetchland Thoughtscore myself and draw 3 cards.
And Probe is still there as well. Oh my god. This is the best one. This is like so off. Do you remember the Carsten Cotter article about it?
Yes, Carsten was the only person in the entire world who actually proxied up the deck, and he actually played Treasure Cruise and Dig Through Time, and he released an article on Star City Games, and he was like, you guys are all crazy, I'm betting my ass these 2 cards are getting banned. Yeah. He was like the only sane person.
Brilliant article. He said he played 2 Delver Mirrors, and the one with Treasure Cruise went 19-2, or like 18-2, and he just said this card is absolutely busted and it will get banned. It was a pretty good called shot, if I have to say.
And here we are, like, trying to figure out whether it should be a card in fucking dredge.
So if it cost 3 and a blue and was an instant, it might be played in dredge.
And in the sideboard of control decks.
Yes, yeah. I mean, the thing is, you have to delve away like non-fetch lands, which you don't want to draw again. So you might have to like dredge away as source of power as you want. I mean, delve.
This is like, I had no idea. I knew we shot it down, but I didn't. He wanted to halve the cost and make it instant, and then maybe, you know.
God, it's like puke-inducing, isn't it? It's so good.
I mean, I guess you can see why we went on a hiatus. Actually, like a couple of years later only.
Yeah, just the shame. You feel so bad about it still.
Yeah. I'm surprised Matt and I are still on the podcast. But here we go. Moving on to the next one. We, in 2019, actually, April 2019, episode 54, we were talking about another... Yeah, easy, right? We were talking about another totally unplayable card. So here we go.
Okay. Next card I wanted to talk about. This card is also pretty exciting. I probably don't think it's there, but the ceiling is extremely high. Is 2 mana Dreadhorce Arcanist, and like the ceiling for this card would be like a couple scenarios. Like say you bolt something turn 1, you play this guy turn 2, then you attack and you get a free lightning bolt. That's pretty good. Then if you're like doing crazier things with like Ancestral Vision. That can be really good. So
yeah, when I first saw that card, and to this day, I'm surprised people haven't been talking so much about that card, because to me, that's probably one of the biggest cards that has been spoiled for Legacy yet. Might even be the most important one, because this card, like you mentioned, it triggers on attack. It doesn't need to connect. It clears its way. Like you get to Lightning Bolt before they go to blockers. And the card, to me, at 2 mana, seems very, very reasonable. This feels like the kind of card they would have, like in the past, printed at something like 1, a red and a red, but now we're getting it like this. I mean, I could end up being wrong, but I can definitely see this in some kind of blue-red shell, like where you also get to flashback your brainstorms. I don't know, like if the kind of card lends itself to working itself into like an Ancestral Vision decks, because Ancestral Vision decks really want to go long most of the time, and I think there's setup. I guess you could technically like Thought Score it into your graveyard and then get it back that way, but that's already asking for a lot to go right. But overall, I think, especially because of Lightning Bolt and this triggering on attack, not on connection, is a pretty big deal.
I'm in the opposite camp. I'm surprised we're talking about it at all. I really am. I had never heard anybody talk about this card for Legacy. I think that it doesn't do anything when it comes into play, and we already have like you said, Snapcaster and lots of other, and the mission briefing and.
So yeah, Dreadhorce Arcanist. Nobody's ever talking about that card. What is it even supposed to do in the format? I think I kind of made a good case for why it is playable, but I remember back then everybody was like, yeah, I don't know about that card. And yeah, it ended up being one of the most dominant creatures we ever had in the format, right?
Sorry, I'm back.
Okay, now you're back. So yeah, Callum had just had to pet a Stalk because a Stalk was in need for some very heavy petting. Actually, that sounds really fucking weird. Anyway, Dreadhorce Arcanist, the card that's totally unplayable. Nobody's talking about it, and I'm not even sure why it's in the show notes. I tried to make the case for it because when I saw it, it really felt crazy to me because it really struck me as a card that's like a 3-mana card. But this is I guess this is part of what I mean. Like in this case, it ended up being wrong, but this is why I really liked Eric's reviews on.
You and Bob were on it, so yeah, like the situation you two described exactly came true. Like the fact that it triggers on attacking, and it's like comes down quickly. My friend in London called Nick, who I have always play tested with most and stuff. When the card came out, it came up in a conversation. He just said, what are you talking about? The card is insane. Like, it's probably going to get banned in Legacy. He said this from day one. And I was like, oh, wow, okay. I didn't even realize it was going to be a good tool. He's like, yeah, of course it's good. You flashback Ponder and Brainstorm. These cards are busted. And then you flashback Bolts against creature decks. It's insane. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, I can see it, I guess. And I played it in our local and just got chaliced constantly. So I thought it was pretty bad.
This is... And also, a part I cut from this clip because it was way too long was that Bob mentioned that it also works really well with Becoming Mans. And I think this is one of the prime examples of what we talked about earlier. Don't go out there looking for the Cataxian Probe Cable Therapy interaction. Look for the tiny incremental advantage over time. Mm-hmm. Because Bob mentioned Ancestral Visions would be insane, right? Becoming Mans, which is more like a modern thing, but which would also be really insane because it has Trample. But the reason this card actually ended up being good is not Ancestral Visions, it's not Becoming Mans, it's really just your Brainstorm, Ponder, or Lightning Bolt. Yeah. And I think something to really, really consciously take away from this is when evaluating future cards, this is what it's really about in Legacy. Because unless you're playing like a dedicated combo deck, or something is as broken as Underworld Breach, don't try to break it to a degree that increases your variance that much that it's not worth it. And I think including stuff like Becoming Men's or Ancestor Visions hits your consistency over proportional to how powerful it is. And yeah, just try to cast as many Brainstorm Ponders as you can while also like hitting your opponent and killing their creatures. And that's what Dreadhorce Arcanist was, and that's why we ended up banning it.
I think you're right from the perspective of a fair card. Like Arcanist is pretty clearly going to be played in fair decks. When you're looking for an unfair deck, though, you are looking for the ceiling, just to add like a little caveat.
Yeah,
and
we're going to have a really good example of that later on, right? And in our very last clip. But that's a really good point. When you have something broken, try to break it as hard as you can, and then you can always like take a step back and try to make it more consistent.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, episode 54. This is actually the very same episode. This was quite the episode. April 2019. We're actually talking about Teferi.
From like, okay, this card in my, I don't know, the card seems like crazy to me. Like, if you're a Storm deck or a Show and Tell deck, like bouncing a Chalice is a pretty big deal, and the fact that like none of your cards can be countered is a pretty big deal. Like, this is a must answer from a deck like that, and it has like this built-in game one answer to stuff like Chalice that you don't already have because it's not useful enough to have Chalice answers against blue decks. So now you've got like this card that's just insane and against blue decks, and it can answer a Chalice. Like, that's pretty crazy to me. So I think in a combo deck, like I'm thinking like Storm's going to want to play white, Show and Tell's going to want to play white. I could even see like Miracles maybe wanting this card, but it doesn't really feel like a control card to me, but we'll see.
I honestly want the card to be playable, even though I'm not convinced it is, because as much as like Marcus and Anorak were like super excited about the card, I was like pretty anti the card.
I don't see it as a control card. I think they're going to be highly disappointed with what it does in a control deck.
Okay, there's some things to unpack here, right?
There's a lot to unpack.
Teferi, like the 3-mana Teferi, it ended up being a control card. Like, we had some show and tell decks that played it, but
I think it's a bit of a flop, actually. Like, it is being played, but not to the levels of what people were expecting. Would you agree?
I thought it was like not going to be good enough in the first place, but I was also like the contrarian, because like in some chats that we talked about the card, I remember specifically like a couple of like control players, they really big time freaked out about this card, like really freaked out about them, and I was like, I already think this is just like barely playable, and now that you think this is going to be crazy, I'm going to call it like unplayable.
Oh yeah, that's classic.
But I still think it's one of those really cool cards, because it's not like crazy broken or anything, unless you want to commit really heavily to, you know, that super sit back, do nothing control plan, which time and again Julian says this is not something you should be doing in Legacy in the first place unless something is broken, yada yada. Yeah. But it's what I found interesting is that Eric called it out as not a control card.
I think it's a very good point. I still don't think
it's a combo card.
Yeah, I think his reasoning was good. The reason why it's probably kind of flopped in combo is because, one, you need to splash white for it, which is a real cost, but 2-3 mana for this effect was just too much when you already have discard and defense grid and stuff. These cards aren't as good as Teferi, or at least defense grid probably isn't like as quote unquote good as in the rule, but like it's a mana more, and that mana more is the difference between going off a turn earlier or a turn later, and that's gonna win or break like when you're playing combo.
Yeah, this card actually made me think about combo and why it's not playing it, like you mentioned. And I think one of the big reasons it actually ended up not being played in Storm is that Storm kind of just like went away with Veil of Summer. Like Storm, to a certain degree, people were like, you know what, Veil of Summer is actually good in our deck. It's like, no, actually, we're just like playing other combo decks, even some stuff like Doomsday. And interestingly enough, Doomsday is one of the few combo decks that actually did somewhat adopt Teferi. Like, we've seen crazy stuff with end of turn Doomsday and stuff.
It's true, actually.
Which is like on top, but
we are seeing Omnitel play Teferi now. There is a blue-white version sometimes.
Blue-white or Bard even, yeah.
Yeah, and like, well, not to toot Esper's horn too much, but like Teferi is obscenely good in Esper Mentor. I'm playing 3 now, but it's still kind of like niche-ish decks and stuff. It's not seeing widespread play. It's quite often a one-of in like the kind of Bant Miracles, if you want to call it Miracles control decks and stuff. Yeah, it's a weird one. Like, I think why it's not seeing more play is purely because of the nature of the Legacy format. The card has been, I think, it's banned in Pioneer. I can't keep up now, or at least banned in Historic as well. It's
not the same. I totally lost track.
They're different now, especially with some new additions. But I think it is both banned in both. Because those formats can afford to play this kind of thing on 3 mana, but Legacy is just a thing where you need more from 3 mana quite often. It's just like half a mana too much, if that makes sense. It's almost there.
To a degree, it goes back to what I earlier said about Delver, how Delver sets the boundaries of what you can and what you cannot do in the format.
That's true.
And yeah, I think that's one of the victims. I mean, it's not even one of the victims, right? We still see it like as a one-off here and there, but it's not like a role player. It's more like a utility card. It's like an upgraded Counselor's Judgment, which we would sometimes see in the main decks of control decks. Yeah. And as such, I kind of like it because generally I kind of like these cards that do something when they come down, and then somewhere down the line they might do something again. It's just weird that the static ability is such a hit or miss. Like some matchups it's insane, some matchups it doesn't do anything. I don't know, maybe. But
it's pretty feel bad.
Something I hate, by the way, I'm too deep into my wine to not say this. Something I absolutely hate because I'm allergic to not being competitive, at least in Magic, is when people are like, you know what? What if it only allowed 1 instant per turn? Or when people were like, what if Deathrite Shaman was just like a green or a black or a 1/1? Like, fuck this shit. Like, I will never blame you for thinking about that or discussing that, but I want no part of that. I want to be fucking competitive and like do stuff. And even though I cast Llanowar Elves, I still want to be competitive. And
we need to clip that for a future episode. Even though I cast Llanowar Elves, I want to be competitive. That one's getting framed.
That's what I'm going to go in episode 200.
Oh, yes.
But yeah, I don't know. This is one of the few times where I really have to hold back because I think I might personally offend people when I don't want to personally offend people. I hate that thing of like theory crafting. It's like, oh, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the cards that have been banned in Legacy recently have been like pretty close to being fine. So you could make Deathrite a 0/1. You could make Ren 6 start at 2 loyalty. You could make Dreadhorse Arcanist a 1/1 or a 1/2. You can do a lot of these little things, but like it's a fun little thought exercise. But yeah, generally it doesn't really get anywhere, but some people feel better about it.
Pretty much. Moving on to getting totally wrong about certain cards. Hey, here's Oko, the most anticipated, most powerful card that everybody called out as being ban-worthy right away as soon as it was spoiled.
The card Oko, probably not playable in Legacy, but it definitely does a lot more than I originally thought it did, because I played against it in Limited. And I don't know, just the first time I read it, I didn't quite realize how ridiculous that card is at 3 mana, but that's probably not good enough for Legacy still.
Yeah, I agree. When you're casting like blue CMC 3 mana spells, it's like there's so many insane options. The bar is just very high.
Yeah, and this one takes like you can make a 3/3 after 2 turns. It's not good enough for Legacy, but it's definitely better than I originally thought.
Well, let's talk about cards who we think are good enough.
Let's talk about cards we think are going to be good enough. And the very next card Bob follows it up with is Charming Prince.
Nice. Hey, he's got the Esquivel in his mind. He'd been talking to Jeff.
No, he's actually talking about humans. I didn't include it in the clip.
I like the ending.
We're also wrong about it. Like, I don't want to call out Bob specifically or Eric. Like, I also was told. Like, we didn't even talk about the card in the previous spoiler episode, which is like we don't even have a clip about it. At this point, Eric had already been exposed to Oko in Limited. And he was like, you know what, maybe in Limited. After 2 turns, you can make a 3/3. Like, can you imagine? Like, I think I never played Limited with Oko, but Oko must be insanely strong in Limited. Like, what are they going to do? Play a dragon? Play a dragon?
I played about 100 drafts of Eldraine. One of the best Limited formats in ever, actually. It's incredible. But Oko was ridiculous. Like, I mean, you can imagine. I don't need to say anything else. It was completely stupid. But it took a very long time to catch on in Legacy as well. It was immediately insane in Standard. But then the rest of the formats, it was good in Pioneer. Or maybe actually Pioneer came out after that, probably. Yeah, never mind. But Legacy was like a month or 2 months until it started to pick up. Around that time, Ren 6 was also legal. So I was, for GP Bologna, I'd been working on a deck with Mox Diamond and Ren 6. And it was like a Planeswalker control deck. And then I just tried 2 Okos on a whim because I was like, okay, this card seems really good in standard. Let's try it out. And then my first match, I like made a Chalice of the Void, a creature, and swordsed it. And I was like, wow, that's really good. Let's try it again. And then the next match playing against Storm, and they like played a Wishclaw Talisman. I made it an Elk. I was like, wow, that's pretty good as well. And then next match, my opponent played like Bug Delver. They played a Tarmogoyf. I made the Goyf for 3/3, hit the Oko down to 1, and then I like made like an Astrolabe 3/3. I was like, wow, this just completely dominates the board. This card is obscene. So I was very quickly turned around to it. But I was still, like, it took me a month at least, or 2, and I think the rest of the Legacy format. And then it was quite quick to be adopted. People put it into Delver as just like a kind of a good card, and then it picked up and up.
They literally put in everything. I 5 out like with like Elves and Oko and Maverick and Oko, or rather like Oko and Elves and Oko and Maverick. Like, that card, man.
It really did.
Where did it go wrong? Why did we not see this coming? What's the lesson to take away from this?
Well, higher loyalty plus it was very flexible. It just did so many different things, I guess.
I think that's probably like the number one reason we underestimated the impact of a 3-mana 6 loyalty planeswalker, because that's what it basically was a lot of times.
It was so hard to get in combat. Do you actually, before you, sorry to interrupt, but do you know what the Wizards of the Coast said about his +2, sorry?
They never thought. The +2, I don't know, but I know about the +1. They said they never thought about using it on the opponent's creature.
Yes, yeah, which is just, it's really funny. It's insane. I don't know how they would not think that, but.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that, because I think one of the reasons why it was so good, like other than the loyalty, is that in Legacy especially, vanilla creature, there's an insanely high standard for being a vanilla creature. Like, what vanilla creatures are we running? Like, if you want to cast Call Delver, a vanilla creature, it's like a 3/2 flying. That's not even like vanilla. Like, the only other vanilla creature we run in the format is a 20/20 flying indestructible to give you some idea of how good it needs to be. Like, seriously, like, if you had like a 2-mana creature, how big would it need to be to see Legacy play if it was vanilla? Like, I'm thinking like 7/7.
4/5, and it grows if there's other card
4/5,
types.
2-mana? I don't think that would see play in Legacy.
And it grows if there's more card types?
No, vanilla. Dude, I'm too deep into my wine and into my resolution to have to be more opinionated about stuff. Maybe even just to make for better clips.
Ethical question. Is Tarmogoyf a vanilla creature?
Yes. No!
Ladies and gentlemen,
the thing is,
we got him.
Tarmogoyf is a fucking 4/5 every time. Tarmogoyf is just like a 4/5, come on.
I've made 10/10s. No, not really.
You never made a 10/10 Tarmogoyf. I'd kick you out. Like, if you put like Rancor on it and then, I don't know, lay down a Fatality or something. But on that topic, by the way, how did they get away with making Tribal a card type? Like, they totally neglected that. No, but seriously, I wanna hear about that in the comments on wherever this is gonna be hosted. I wanna hear about this on Twitter @EternalMTG. I wanna hear about this on Discord, and I want you to send letters to Julian Knapp in Germany. People will find me. How big would a vanilla creature need to be for 2-mana? And like you can pick any 2-mana. It could be like black, 1 green, 1 red, whatever. It can't be 2 colorless, because that would be nuts. How big would a vanilla creature need to be to see play? And I think it's.
I'm between 6 and 8, but variables.
I think 8 would be absolutely seeing play, because then you'd really just get it down and protect it with Phosphor and Daze for like 2 turns.
I think 6/6 is like on the lower side.
I think 6/6 is good because it beats Tarmogoyf. I think the more,
but it dies to
okay. Here's the interesting dynamic. Yeah, here's the interesting dynamic of Legacy though. If actually a card like that was actually become a thing, everybody would be playing Baleful Strix and even like Ice Strength, and then we need to balance it out that way. And even that, vanilla is just like fucking garbage in Legacy. And the second factor is Akram's Astrolabe. It really helped it out. Like, you could turn your Astrolabes, which drew your card, like a 1-mana 3/3 that draws your card. That's Legacy playable. And even like the downside is that sometimes it's not a 3/3, but then it fixes your mana. It still draws a card. Like, it's just like the perfect storm. And we underestimated how hard Oko was to kill.
I would have been interested in how the format, like, how good Oko would have been if Astrolabe didn't exist. I don't want to try it ever again. I don't want to try the format with Oko back in it.
Let's never go there.
No, but I would be interested to see, like, if it would have been as dominant ever, which I doubt it. And it probably would have still been played, but nothing like we saw before.
I'm just so glad we'll never find out.
Yeah, I know, me too.
There we go. In speaking of broken stuff, here's episode number 71, December 2019. We talk about a little-known enchantment that sacrifices at the end of turn, Underworld Breach. And one of our guests on the show, or our guest on the show, the only person to win Legacy Eternal Weekends on 2 different continents, and one of the most recent Legacy challenges, most importantly, H.J. Kaiser from Denmark. He talks about Underworld Breach. The card that we're talking about is Underworld Breach. That card thus far looks a little bit crazy. When I initially saw it, I thought like, oh my god, this is gonna break Legacy in half. Now I'm not so sure anymore. You can use Lions or Diamond and Brain Freeze to pretty much win on the spot. So you would basically you would crack LED, have Brain Freeze in your graveyard. You can even if you have the cards in your graveyard, you can just like replay LED and then Brain Freeze yourself, for example, or you can set it up in many different ways. The thing is, once you get to Brain Freeze and LED, you can generate a storm count that's high enough to basically outright Brain Freeze your opponent. But I guess that's not the kind of magic that HJ wants to play after talking to you for 1.5 hours. I get the vibe.
So this is basically like a passive play. This is Legacy. Your combo tech has to be fairly broken for it not to be shut down by something. Like the scary things in Legacy is when your crazy combo tech starts working with a grindy deck as well. That's where I start getting scared.
That's where you start getting scared. A grindy combo deck with a combo finish. I mean, it wouldn't be much of a combo deck if it didn't have that, I guess.
Yeah, true.
This guy, he saw the future, he didn't acknowledge it, and I wasn't opinionated enough to fucking call him out on it. Nice.
I'm going to put my hands up in the air. I had a similar thought. Like, combo engines that use the graveyard is so easily attacked these days. I was in the same boat. I thought the combo is nuts. Like, the fact that you can just, like, go LED brain freeze is really, really broken. It was pretty clear. Everyone could see the potential. But I don't know, I was skeptical as well. I was like, look, if this deck gets really big, then you just play Chalices on 0 and Leyline of the Voids. And then it was only when I started playing the deck and I kept beating all that, I was like, holy moly, we have something really broken going on. And it's
that's pretty much it, right?
It's rare that we get decks, like combo decks, which are pure combo decks. Like, yes, it could grind, and having the Mentor Cyborg plan was like a huge thing because the combo was so compact, you didn't need to like dedicate all this air and combo slots to it. You could afford to have cantrips as part of your combo engine. That's what the crux was. Like, you're fueling the graveyard with cantrips, which also find your combo pieces and play into your Cyborg plan. So it all just came together perfectly. But I think in general, I will continue to be skeptical of a combo that uses the graveyard fully because we have like Leyline of the Void and Surgical Extraction. And these cards are good versus it. And the deck just managed to beat everything because it had access to like Serenity as well. And it was just the colors it was in, the way it could be built was too good.
And this is what I talk about when I say control decks can only ever be good in Legacy. And by good, I mean tier 1 good. When there's something broken. And that's just like one of those decks that comes to mind. And it's an amazing deck because like you mentioned, it happens to have that combo finish, but you can even like after sideboarding have the mentors. But overall, you just like played mana, cantrips, permission, and then you had that combo suit. And it was like such a tiny combo suit. It almost felt like playing Vintage. And it's such a shame and also a blessing in disguise, I guess, that I want to say like 90% of Legacy players were never exposed to the powers of Underworld Breach. It's something you hear about on obscure podcasts like 1 year later, but it's something a lot of people weren't ever like fully exposed to fully understand what I mean when I say hard control can only be a thing when you have like something broken.
Yeah,
I'll
put my hands up here. I absolutely adored playing this deck. It's part of the fun of playing a broken deck as you win a lot as well. But there was just something beautiful about it. Like, it was just such raw power, but also you had so much control over what you're doing with it as well. And sure, you had like the turn 1 kills sometimes, but the mirrors as well were like absurdly complex. Oh my god. Like, because you're both playing Silence and Orem's Chant, so if you play your Breach, you just silence them in response. And so it's
get wrecked, nerd. Sorry,
exactly.
I had too much fun.
We're in that phase already. But god, so I humble brag, I won a showcase challenge with this deck, and I played Marcus Evold in the finals, and
Okay, sorry, I gotta interrupt you. Everything you need to know about the Breach area is that Marcus and Callum met in the finals of a showcase challenge, which qualifies you for the World Championships or something.
A qualifier for it. But I had only played like a league and a half with the deck before the morning of it, and I messaged Marcus saying, "Can you send me your list?" And he sent me the list with 3 predicts. I was like, "Yep, sold." And later in the day we're in the finals. But our finals match was like so like God. We just played. You're going to hate this. We played land go for like the first 5 turns.
No, that's fine. That's
fine. Okay, cool. Just cantripping for lands, and then later it was like play a breach, force your silence, then like silence again, do your thing, or you lead off with silence. They need to silence in response rather than play a breach. Then you have the fluster storms everywhere, and then it's just crazy. It's some of the most like mind-bogglingly intricate Magic I've ever played. That mirror.
This is the curse of my existence, that the decks I hate the most, like Top Miracles and I guess Underworld Breach and stuff, the thing I enjoy the most in the history of Legacy is the mirrors of those decks. There's few things I enjoyed more in the history of Legacy than Top Miracles mirrors or Underworld Breach mirrors, because they are both incredibly tactical and incredibly strategic. And you rarely ever get that. And you only really get that when stuff is insanely broken. Like the Lurus mirrors were insanely broken, not broken, insanely interesting,
totally
but also the deck was super broken. And that's just like something, or the older ones of you might remember, like Rock Natural Order around 2011, like Reed Duke popularized the deck at GB Providence. Like all of that stuff, it's insanely cool and it's a lot of fun, but it sucks when you play against 95% of the rest of the metagame that you just crush and eventually it just gets old. But yeah, that's...
No, I totally agree.
I have a lot of strong opinions about Legacy.
One of the best broadcast Legacy matches I think I've ever seen is of Japanese GP, where there's an Omnitel mirror. Do you know what I'm talking about? I think Yasuoka is one of the players.
And nothing happens for like 7 turns or something?
Yeah, it's beautiful. And then, but Yasuoka had young Pyromancers in the sideboard, and the other player had to leave in his show and tells. And like they win by like Yasuoka has to cunning. They both have omnisciences in play, and Yasuoka has to like through the breach. So he gets attacked by an Emrakul, and he sacrifices all but 2 omnisciences in play. He then through the breaches for an Emrakul. A Cunning Wish for a Through the Breach, to play Through the Breach, to put in his own Emrakul to block the attacking Emrakul. It's just like such mind-bogglingly crazy Legacy gameplay. But again, it's a mirror and like of these like completely busted decks. So yeah, I would next time a really broken deck comes along, which is not like snow and really boring, I urge everyone to try and play some mirrors though, because I completely agree with what you're saying.
And it's going to make you so much better. It's going to make you insanely better. It's like you go to the training camp, that Rocky did in, I don't know, Siberia. You're going to come out ripped and powerful, and you're going to crush everybody and their girlfriend and their boyfriend and everybody. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. And it's funny you mentioned that, because I think whenever something is broken and you play the mirror match, it's like playing chess with rocket launchers on your nights, and it's so much fun.
Yeah, good way of putting it.
This is what we do. We have one more clip, and this one has the Callum Smith from the UK in it, and Callum is going to tell us about a little-known companion called Gyruda. So the next one, I'm actually wondering why I put that into our show notes, is called Gyruda, Doom of Depth. And
I think this is really powerful.
Okay, I'm happy I put it there. Yeah. It's a 6/6 Demon Kraken. Okay, now I'm seeing it. Demon Kraken, I'm sold.
There we go.
Callum, explain to us how this is going to revolutionize Legacy.
The first idea was given to me by Stefan Schultz. He said you can play this with clones. So if you play it and you mill a clone, be it like Phantasmal Image or the original clone, you copy itself, and then the legend rule away the clone or whatever copy, and that mills both players' deck.
Oh, so you keep switching between them?
Because of the legend rule. So the legend rule, the clone comes into play, it copies the ETB effect, and then you get the clone again, and you get the clone again, and you get the clone again. So it's going to be like a 1-card combo, where you just need to get to 6 mana, where you can use Lions of Diamond because you can discard your hand, and then if you hit a clone in your top 4 cards, you win the game if they don't have an Emrakul in play.
So I like your definition of 1-card combo.
You would need to mill a clone every single time, so that's like...
Wait, you're already bouncing, you're already doing it through your whole deck, right?
Yeah, you're right. You need to have a deck full of clones.
Wait,
I
what?
think there's enough out there. Well, you could have loads of clones in your deck. It's just all fast mana and clones.
But you could still, it's only milling 4, so you could fizzle. So you have a deck filled with clones that fizzles. Quite easily, because it's only 4 cards.
This is an amazing meme deck. 10% chance of winning when you do your thing. Okay, so I think there's some other ideas, like it could play with Bomberman to get Auric Salvages or like something. Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to try it, but it's really, really bad, probably.
I love it. It's a bad 1-card combo.
Callum, stand your fucking ground. We literally constructed the entire deck during this 1.5 minutes.
Yeah.
Fast mana, clones, Demon Kraken. And if you fucking fizzle, you know, we didn't take into account that if you fizzle, you're still left with like 24 power on the board.
Exactly. I was being bombarded with shit talking from you two, and I was like, okay, fine, I'll go and prove you wrong later on. But yeah, I should have stood my ground. It ended up being the first card to be banned in Legacy within the first week, but because it was bugged online. But yeah, the deck ended up being insane, didn't it? Like, I mean, it's still around technically.
It was super insane. Like, the funny thing is, as I edited this clip, I actually was paired against Gyruda on Magic Online and totally crushed it because, like, it doesn't really work anymore.
Yeah.
But I just can't believe that we were like, oh, it's like a bad 1-card combo. You just, like, pay 6 mana with LED and you're left with, like, on average 24 power. Like, what the fuck? It's like, oh, it's so bad. People are gonna play, like, Delver on the first turn. Then what are you gonna do? Attack for 24? Oh, good luck.
I think we tricked ourselves.
So I think you have to take over from here. My wine is getting, like, I don't know.
Well, we tricked ourselves. We kind of set ourselves.
You tricked yourself.
No, 1-card combo. That is broken usually. That's what you need to look onto. So this is the lesson from this one: is for future. If you find a 1-card combo, it's probably really good. This card was 6 mana, and technically the combo lost to Caracas or Source of Plowshares or Pyroblast because you can kill or bounce the Gyruda with the first trigger on the stack, and then they have to hit another one in the top 4, which is quite unlikely because there's 3 left in the deck. So yeah, lesson is 1-card combos are really powerful. And
what are the most powerful 1-card combos in the history of Legacy? I got Doomsday. What do you have?
Gyruda.
Okay, it's my turn again.
Hermit Druid.
Oh, come on. That was never Legacy legal.
No, okay. I'm struggling.
I got it. Survival of the Fittest.
No, but you need a creature as well.
Oh, come on. We can have like 30 creatures in our deck.
Okay, fine. I'm struggling.
I guess it's the closest we came. Like, honestly, like 1-card combos are incredibly rare in Legacy. Like,
yeah,
there isn't really much left.
No. So this is why, for future, if you catch me saying, well, this is just a bad 1-card combo, call me out because it's probably wrong.
I guess Badger.
It's a 1-card combo with huge deck building restriction. Whereas
the thing is, Gyruda also has deck building restrictions, but
not to the same extent.
Like you were probably going to say before I interrupted you in my drunken.
It's the fact that you could cast Gyruda just straight from exile, so LED just casts it. Like that was the massively broken interaction.
True.
Yeah. It is weird how they missed. Like, I think I hadn't heard it put better than this. I think it was maybe Matt Sperling said the fact that companions need an errata to add 3 mana is the difference between Time Walk and Time Warp. Like, missing an interaction by 3 mana is massive, isn't it? Like, that is a huge miss. 3 mana is a huge deal in these games of Magic. So, yeah, companions, maybe biggest mistake Wizards have ever done. Like,
at least they corrected it rather quickly, and it gave us some amazing gameplay. Like, I will never forget that mono white Surus. No, not Surus. I don't even know. What's it called?
Lurus.
Leonine of the Dream Dead. Lurus. That's
Leonine of the Dream Dead. You definitely had too much wine. I'm glad it didn't continue. But that Lurus era was pretty amazing as well. Did you? So you loved the blue-white tempo deck?
Yes, I loved her. What? Sorry, what?
Oh my god. You need more wine, I think.
No, I only have white wine left, and that's not what's happening tonight.
No, okay, fair enough.
I only got white wine. Anyway, that's a different story. So yeah, we were gonna say 1-card combos absolutely broken. The one card combo waiting to be broken. I guess you already broke it. Is Defense of the Heart. Dude, Defense of the Heart. I want it broken so badly just because it's versus Legacy card.
I've given you the key.
Way off topic here.
You just need Leveler and Thassa's Oracle.
Yeah.
And I'm so going to watch you. You're going to stream it while drunk, and you're going to click them wrong, and I'm going to lose It's going to be fantastic.
And the opponent might just gonna scoop anyways because they were like, oh god, I'm good. This reminds me of like one of my very first vintage streams where I wastelanded my own underground sea accidentally. I abrupticate my own Nilrod accidentally. And here's the very best part. I cast Dark Blast on my own Dark Confidant, and I was like, oh fuck. And then the opponent flusterstormed it because they thought I must have cast Dark Blast on their Dark Confidant. They didn't, like, how often do you really check whether the removal spell is hitting what you think it's gonna hit? And they flusterstormed, and I was like, okay, good. I'm gonna do it next turn again.
Nice.
Okay, we're way off here. You have to take it from here.
Well, I think we're actually getting towards the end. That was our last clip. Do we have any general takeaways of evaluating cards?
Yeah, just like fucking kick ass and do what you think is broken in Legacy, and if it doesn't work out that way, whatever. You can always talk about it later on my podcast.
There we go. There we have it, folks. That is how to evaluate cards. Just kick ass. And if you get it wrong, don't worry, because you're not saying it on a podcast like us, so you don't have to like be bound to it and made fun of in a year's time. So I'm looking forward to quoting that one in episode 200. Like, Julian, so what do you think now? And you're going to be drunk then as well. Be like, yeah, just kick more ass and break more cards.
Well.
I came to drink Spanish wine and kick more ass.
Yeah, I'm making the case for Spanish wine over French wine, and I don't know how many French patrons we have, but I'm sorry. Maybe you gotta send me French wine too. Actually, this is turning way too deep into a French podcast, into a French wine podcast,
well,
into a wine podcast.
We could get a guest on about French wine.
I think there's, judging by our Discord, we probably have a lot of experts on anything food and wine related.
We have some like. I'm not a food person myself, I've said this a few times, but I do scroll through our Everyday Eternal, and there's some fantastic looking stuff in there.
Did I tell you that I just got a flamethrower?
You did not?
Like a tiny flamethrower?
Tiny one?
I make sushi.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you want to like char your salmon for the sushi, so it gets a different color, and allegedly also the flavor changes, but I guess that's just happening in your head. I literally got a tiny flamethrower, and I'm actually really scared to use it but yeah, we will figure it out. I'm gonna post pictures how it's gonna work out.
Sounds good. Well, yeah, I think we're good to wrap it up there. What do you think?
Awesome. If you wanna join our Discord, hit us up, patreon.com/everydayeternal. Become one member of our thriving Patreon community. Check out all the awesome food questions and shit talking that happens on our channel. Shout out to everybody on the Patreon. Also, seriously, shout out to everybody on Patreon, because you really are making sure that this thing keeps the lights on. Like, we love this thing, but time is money. I think James Franklin, the guy with the light bulb man, Benjamin Franklin, that's the guy, the money guy, the guy on the money. He said time is money, and I mean, that's really like how I can justify putting the time into all of this, and you guys are making a lot of difference for me and everybody, and thank you so much. Without any one of you in the Patreon, or even just like the Greater Legacy community,
he wouldn't be able to drink so much Spanish wine.
I'd be drinking all the water here, and I don't know how that would work out. But seriously, you people make all of this work, even by just listening, talking about it, or giving us money. Thank you so much for that. I keep saying that, I guess, every other episode, but I can't emphasize how much of a difference that makes. So thank you so much for that. I don't want to make it really awkward. But yeah, that's the thing. If you want to help us out, leave us a review on Patreon. No, fuck. If you want to help us out, leave us a review.
Review us on Patreon. Let's do it.
Fuck, I can't get it. Go do the thing on the Apple Podcasts homepage and say, this cast rocks, 5 stars all the way. And that's going to help a lot of other people join our community, become involved in Legacy, and learn about the teachings of Gyruda, which, I don't know, the card is illegal, right? Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for that. Hit us up on Twitter at EternalMTG. Callum, where can people find you other than the UK?
This is where I always struggle. It's at Whitefaces, and it's MTG on Twitter or Twitch, and the other one doesn't have it. I'll remember it for one of these episodes.
I actually know it.
Go on, tell me.
You are at WhiteFacesMTG on Twitter, and on Twitch, you are at Whitefaces. No, not at. You are Whitefaces. You got it. People can watch you stream stuff. Thank you so much for getting us to 100. Looking forward to all that's to come.
Me too.
Thank you so much to our Eternal Witness Patreons. Tommy Hinks, Trent Browers, Testacular, who just finished runner-up in the Legacy Challenge, Sebastian Hollager, Guillaume, Jake, and Severin Schwarzhuber, and drumroll, I don't know if you can hear this, Grizzlebrand tier supporters, Victor Bernatz, Bachu Bat, Scott Monroe, Jeremy Gates, Henry Cockhoots, Tom Happ, Christopher Reinhardt, and Paragon Games in St. Louis. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Callum. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Magic Legacy. Have a good morning, evening, afternoon. See you again on the next cast. Bye-bye. Kick kicking ass. Keep kicking ass. That's the one.
We did it.
Awesome. Here we go. Bye-bye.